Hi guys, this is Puppy UK for EvECoPilot.net, and today I've got some interesting footage for you of a Slowcat fleet we were putting together to counter a Gorgon fleet that was attacking some SPUs in the area. So we'll pick this footage up from where we undocked. So we've gone through our final checks, the intel. We have our own eyes on the field that would confirm there are dreadnoughts on the field. We have our EvECoPilot and our cyno in place, and we're just about to jump in. Now it's at the point we start to jump through where things start to get interesting. I'm going to play you a snippet from the fleet comms, which is moments after we jump into the hostile system.
Rihanna Taldoni is the anchor in Century Sun.
Legion of XX death.
Oh shit, really?
Oh.
200?
As you can hear, that was a report of 200 hostiles entering the system. At the same time, the bubbles are coming up around the caps, and at the moment this doesn't look good. Luckily for us, the FC manages to keep his wits around him, and after a brief pause, starts putting the pieces in motion to get this fight started.
A line is in broadcast right now. Line's in broadcast. Start assigning Rihanna. Assign to Rihanna.
So to give you guys an update on where we are at the moment, as we initially jumped the Slowcats in, we jumped into the middle of a evenly matched subcat fleet fight, and the idea being that the additional DPS by the Slowcat carriers would have turned the fight in our favour. Unfortunately, what we didn't count on was the additional 100-man subcat gang that's about to land on the grid with us, therefore adjusting the odds once again. So the choice we have at the moment is basically fight or flight. Do we dig our heels in and try and fight this larger force, or do we try and turn our tail and run and accept the losses? Now, there's a few different factors affecting this decision. First of all is there are sporadic bubbles at the moment going up and down on the fleet, and if one or two of the carriers did get left behind, they'd be dead for sure. Secondly is that it was very recently that we jumped into the system, meaning a lot of the carriers are going to have lower cap levels depending on when they actually got their cap chains up and the fits they had when they landed in the system. And lastly is that the reinforcements for the hostile fleet has already arrived on the grid. With this in mind, there's only going to be a few carriers that are going to be able to make it out, and doing so would pretty much commit the rest of the capital fleet to death. So with that in mind, we decided to turn around, anchor in on each other, and just fight as long as we could. So now that we decided to fight, the next thing to do is try and get more friendlies in the system with us. So we already have pings going out for a subcat fleet that's forming, and it's probably on its way in by now. And on top of that, we're getting more Slowcat carriers into the fleet and getting them ready to jump in. At this point, I decide to make my first fitting switch of the fight. As you can see, my capacitor is now full, and on top of that my cap chain is up, which is going to enable me to swap out some of my capacitor modules for drone damage modules. This is being done by a lot of the fleet members, and it's going to enable us to put out a lot more DPS onto the field. At this point the hostiles make quite a clever move, which is to warp away from the grid and then warp back in directly on top of our sentry drones. Now, doing this enables them to get underneath the tracking of our drones and really mitigate a lot of the damage. What this forces us to do is abandon the drones that we have in space at the moment, and then drop an entire new fleet of drones on our current location. Now, the problem with this is that not only does it take time to get all the drones reassigned and get them all launched, it's also costing us money, and anyone that's not so well prepared in the fleet may not have a spare set of drones, and of course if they do this again we're going to need a third and possibly a fourth set. On top of that, it's also bringing the hostile fleet in at closer range, allowing them to load shorter range ammunition and therefore put more DPS on the carriers that are on the field. Enough time's passed now where we have a substantial number of additional Slowcat carriers at our home system. With this in mind, I make my second fit change of the fight, which is to put a cyno field in my high slot and a full set of tank in my low slot. This is obviously assuming that once I launch a cyno field from the carrier, it will become the primary target. Now that the cyno field's green, we can jump the rest of the Slowcat carriers onto the grid. This helps us in two ways. Firstly, we now have more DPS from the sentries. It's going to enable us to cut through the hostile fleet. Secondly, we now have additional capital armor repairers, enabling us to tank more DPS. However, this also provides some problems. Firstly, the new capitals on the field have just jumped in, meaning their capacitor levels are low and we're not going to be able to leave until they're repaired. Secondly, the cap chain of the fleet has now been adjusted. The way that the cap chain works is that everyone in the fleet gives capacitor to the person below them, and the person at the bottom gives cap to the guy at the top. Now that we have new capitals on the field, this needs to be adjusted correctly by every member, or the cap chain is going to break down. As an additional complication, we now have my carrier with an active cyno field. This means that my carrier is now immobile for the next 5 minutes, meaning we're not going to be able to align elsewhere or leave the grid until that cyno field's down. At this point in the fight, I can see that even though my carrier has the cyno field active, I'm still not being primaried by the hostile fleet. With this in mind, I decide to change back to a damage fit, and of course if I do start to see my shields depleting, I'll change back to the tank fit immediately. At this point the hostiles have relocated on the grid and are engaging us from a much further range. This enables us to recall the drones that we currently have deployed and reconnect to the drones that were originally unusable due to the hostile fleet being at them on 0. At this point in time, all of the hostile dictors have been killed either by us or the friendly subcat fleet. Additionally to that, we now have our supercarrier fleet on standby, and the reinforcement friendly subcat fleet has arrived on the grid with us. What we're hoping for now is that the hostiles will decide to deploy supercarriers on the field in an attempt to kill our carriers, which will enable us to drop our supercarrier fleet as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that the hostiles are willing to commit super capitals to the fight. This marks the point for us to begin executing a safe extraction. To do this, we need to align all carriers to a specific point and make sure that everyone is fully aligned and able to warp, making sure that no one gets left behind on the grid to die. Secondly to this, we need to make sure that all of our capitals have enough capacity to jump out of the system as soon as they exit warp, again making sure that no one gets left behind.
As soon as you're out of warp, guys, you jump on contact. Unless there's a fucking zipper right there and you know somebody's gonna get tackled, so...
Station grid's clear on I1.
Alright guys, as soon as you land, we're clear here, right?
Yeah, we're clear. Everybody jump, I take one.
Alright, jump, everybody jump. Everybody jump. Jump.
Guys. Everybody jump.
Good job.
Thanks FC, nice job.
Anybody, is everybody out? Anybody left there?
Captain Zitsubo, you better be fucking jumping.
No carriers left on the field.
Cool. Good job, guys.
Nice.
Thank you guys, that was awesome.
Yep, that was win. Well done
That
everybody.
was brilliant shoes, guys.
I can't believe they didn't have to light a cyno on my carrier.
Unfortunately, it would seem our celebrations were slightly premature. Just as we were all about to dock up, we get reports of one carrier that hasn't made the jump yet.
Guys, I see
That
one
was
carrier who
verified.
I think did not jump.
Unfortunately for us, the reports were true. There was one carrier left on the grid that hadn't jumped with the rest of the fleet. It was later discovered that, for some unknown reason, the carrier that was left behind was not on comms with the rest of the fleet, and therefore didn't get the command to jump out. Why this brave soul didn't click his capacitor window and jump out with the rest of the fleet will probably never be known. What initially started out as a quick capital op to kill a small subcap gang and a few capitals turned into a 45-minute long siege involving over 400 individuals. By the time we'd all got home and the dust had settled, we'd killed over 80 of the 173 hostiles on the field, including one hostile dreadnought, bringing the total losses to just over 14 billion ISK. I'd like to thank Oblivion, the Nully FC, basically for having the balls to commit to this fight, and the other capital pilots, both that jumped in initially and that came in the reinforcement fleet, for doing their job well. This was one of those fights that could easily have turned the other way had a few mistakes have been made at the wrong time, and we would have probably lost the entire fleet once we started to lose capitals. And last but not least, the subcat fleet that was there at the time. They stayed on the grid basically for the sole purpose of distracting the subcat fleet long enough for us to get our reinforcements in and therefore get all the carriers out. Without them, we would have been taking a lot more damage on the capitals when we jumped in, and again, probably wouldn't have made it out. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. It was certainly a very fun fight for me. It's very rare to sort of have that, oh my god, I'm going to lose my carrier feeling. So I really enjoyed it. Can't wait for some more. And yeah, these nutty guys, a lot of respect from me. Really good fight. See you soon.